Hello and welcome to Cymru Rails. Today is another instalment of the Pembrokeshire Locomotive Collection. I've always wanted to delve into the history of the railways that are right on my doorstep here in Pembrokeshire, and of course modelling the locomotives that worked them. In the first instalment you saw me complete a model of the Hook Colliery Avonside locomotive, which was a pleasure to model, and I learned a lot from that process. Join me now as we delve into the next piece of Pembrokeshire railway history and bring some of that history to life. Our journey today begins at Pembroke Dock, a former Royal Navy dockyard established in 1814. This site became one of Britain's important shipbuilding centres, launching over 260 naval vessels, including battleships and royal yachts over its 112 years of operation. After the dockyard's closure in 1926, the site found a new purpose. In the 1930s, the Royal Air Force established a flying boat base here. This was a significant transition, and by World War II, RAF Pembroke Dock became the largest operational flying boat station in the world. It was home to numerous aircrafts, most notably the iconic short Sunderland flying boats. These majestic aircrafts played a critical role in the Battle of the Atlantic, conducting anti-submarine warfare, convoy escorts, and air-sea rescue missions. Imagine the sight of nearly 100 Sunderlands moored in the haven, a truly incredible spectacle it must have been. Connecting this vast and busy dockyard to the wider world was its intricate railway system. While the main Pembroke and Tenby Railway eventually reached Pembroke Dock in 1864, providing a vital link for passengers and freight, the dockyard itself had an extensive internal network of lines. These industrial railways, with their tight curves and numerous sidings, were essential for moving materials, equipment, and munitions around the sprawling site. It was a bustling, self-contained railway world, crucial for the dockyard's operation, whether building ships or supporting the mighty Sunderland flying boats. One of the well-known locomotives that served in Pembroke Dock is Andrew Barclay Works No. 1385, Rosyth No.1. This locomotive was built by Andrew Barclay in 1914 as the first of 5 engines for the Royal Naval Dockyard at Rosyth. The Admiralty had decided to site a naval base at the dockyard in Rosyth in 1903 to strengthen its presence along the eastern seaboard of Great Britain due to a naval arms race with Germany. The government purchased the land, and the town of Rosyth was planned as a garden city to house the workers. The tidal basin and 3 graving docks were built between 1909 and 1916, and Rosyth Fuel Depot was completed in 1919. The 1914 built locomotive was therefore ready before Rosyth Dockyard was fully operational, and so it was transferred to the Royal Naval Dockyard at Pembroke Dock. It worked diligently there until 1955 when its boiler was condemned. Following being fitted with a new boiler by Andrew Barclay, the locomotive was deployed at RAF St Athan in the Vale of Glamorgan. Here it was primarily used as a backup to diesel power, and in 1972 it was offered for sale. It was then purchased in 1973 for the Railway Club of Wales. It was restored back to steam in 1985, but with no immediate running line available, it was moved to the Swansea Maritime and Industrial Museum, where it steamed on a number of occasions. The Locomotive Club of Wales later moved it to the Gwylly Railway in 1987, seeking an opportunity to steam the locomotive on a more frequent basis. The locomotive was fitted with vacuum brake gear, enabling it to haul passenger trains in 1991. Later, the locomotive was moved to the Swansea Vale Railway, and then in 2003 to the Teifi Valley Railway, where it remained until 2012. It was returned to steam again in 2014, and in 2016 the locomotive was generously donated by the Railway Club of Wales to the Pontypool and Blaenavon Railway. The locomotive was withdrawn from service in February 2024, specifically on February 11th, when its boiler certificate expired. It is currently placed in storage at the Pontypool and Blaenavon Railway, awaiting next overhaul. The inspiration for this model again comes from the fantastic model making of John Scanlon, who has an incredible collection of Pembrokeshire locomotives in O gauge. He had an amazing model of Rosyth No.1, which I knew would eventually be a project I tackled modelling myself. As I mentioned previously, when it comes to electrics and wiring on the side of modelling, it's not a strength of mine, and with no experience with brass kits or soldering, I wanted to take a different approach with this one. My plan was to use a ready-to-run Andrew Barclay, a model originally by Hattons, which has now been reproduced by Accurascale after they acquired the tooling. From there, with an existing model, I plan to modify this ready-to-run model to better reflect how Rosyth No.1 would have looked in its earlier years, while in service at Pembroke Dock. After researching photographs of her at Pembroke Dock and her earlier preservation years, I noticed how she had a different cab to how she has looked recently at the Pontypool and Blaenavon Railway. As this is a Pembrokeshire Locomotive Collection, I wanted her to closely reflect that previous look and replace the current model's cab with a 3D printed one, modelled to look like her old one. Also, in several photographs I was able to locate, I have also discovered while in use at the dockyard, she actually used dumb buffers, so these would also need to be modelled. This is where I need to give a huge thank you to West London Model Railway. He had heard about my plans to model the locomotive and my need to have the cab and buffers as 3D printed parts, and he has done an absolutely excellent job at modelling the cab from the photographs I provided. The detail is absolutely superb and really captures that original shape perfectly. My Accurascale Andrew Barclay arrived, and I began by separating the body from the chassis. This was simple, as it was just 2 screws. The frame was attached to the main body by 3 screws, which I also undid. I was able to detach the cab from the boiler, while still having the firebox attached to the main boiler. I removed all the details from the boiler, like the handrails and lamp irons, and put them aside for now, to be reattached at a later time. I also removed the handrails from the original cab, which is now unused for the model, so that I could reattach these to the 3D printed cab. I was also easily able to remove the buffers from the model, which were just glued in place. I then sanded down the buffer beams to remove any of the rivets, so the dumb buffers would be able to fit against the model without colliding with any of the details that were previously there. At this point, I test-fitted the 3D printed cab to the boiler, and it fit perfectly, slotting onto the firebox nicely. Now, with all these items ready for the next step, I masked off the firebox to preserve the painting details that were applied by Accurascale. I then primed all the parts in a matte black primer. Once this had dried, I then masked off the model again, masking the parts that I wanted to remain black. I then primed the model again in a green colour. I wasn't really happy with this green colour though, so it didn't stay this colour for long. After getting back to the modelling table, I then picked out a suitable green which reflects its early preservation colour. The one I found that matched it very nicely is a Citadel Paints Caliban Green. I then hand-painted the body in this colour, applying thin coats over time. I also used a cream colour to paint the inside of the cab. I used Metal and Alchemy Victorian brass to paint the rims of the cab windows, and also pick out some of the other brass piping and details. The buffer beams were painted in a Humbrol signal red. I then painted the dumb buffers in a chestnut brown colour. Now, with all the painting out of the way, I then reattached the details to the model. I also added the coupling hooks, which were provided by Accurascale in the detail bag. I also attached the metal whistle to the new cab on the roof. And finally, the final touch is something I picked up specifically for this project, which was a fine etched metal name and builder's plate from Fox Transfers for Rosyth. I am really happy with these, and they really complete the model. And there we have it, our very own model of the Pembroke Dockyard Locomotive Andrew Barclay Rosyth No.1. With the model completed, I took a trip down to Pembroke Dock to visit the Pembroke Dock Heritage Centre, a museum celebrating the rich maritime, military and cultural heritage of Pembroke Dock. They work closely with the Pembroke Modellers Club to model things from Pembroke Dock's past, like planes and boats from its history. From a previous visit, I knew they had an excellent diorama of the dockyard, which included a section of 00 gauge track. I took some lovely photos of my model on the diorama, recreating a historical scene. Thank you very much to the volunteers there that allowed me to place my model on the diorama. Before we wrap up, I would just like to say a massive thank you to West London Model Railway for producing the cab of this model. He has really brought this project together, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. I highly recommend checking out his Instagram page, and consider checking out his Cults 3D page if you are able to print 3D models, as he produces his amazing and strikingly unique designs for locomotives. If you are interested in modelling Rosyth yourself, I have made the files for this project available on my Patreon as a reward. If you're interested in supporting the channel and helping bringing more content like this to life, head on over to my Patreon. The link is in the description below. And of course, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our upcoming videos coming out regularly. If you have any questions about the model or the process, please leave a comment below and I will try my best to answer them. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Hwyl fawr.